Well, let's talk more about Nigeria's economic situation. And Nigeria is Africa's largest economy and is facing significant economic challenges that threatens stability and growth. Despite being rich in natural resources, including oil and gas and minerals, the country's economy is challenged with providing for its citizens. Nigeria's economy has been heavily reliant on oil exports for decades. However, these over-reliance on oil has made the country vulnerable to fluctuations in global oil prices. When oil price drops, Nigeria's economy suffers. Corruption and inefficient leadership have also hindered Nigeria's economic growth. Many say corruption has led to mismanagement of public funds, while inefficient leadership has resulted in poor economic policies. President Bola Tinubu decided to take the bull by the horn with his bold reforms that he has taken so far. These has generated comments from all concerned parties and, of course, the economic society. I am being joined by Mr. Ogbona Okuku. He is an investment and economic development expert. He joins me from our Abuja studios. Good afternoon, Mr. Okuku. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, Tolu.
Yes, I think it's good to start with the state of the economic reforms and where we find ourselves at the moment. There's been lots of reactions around the reforms, the fallout of the reforms, but we are moving on. And just like the IMF said we must stay the course. Now, let me ask you, where are we in your understanding of these reforms instituted by this administration?
Okay, so let me start by saying that we are basically at the foundation of it all. When I say the foundation, because I mean, first things first, I must say this. You know, over the years, we've lived in a bubble. I mean, trying to explain away those realities of our existence or what we have found ourselves in as a nation. But basically, the kind of leadership that we have now is a leadership that have actually decided, just like your intro, you stated in your intro, that decided to take the bull by the horn. What do I mean by that? See, if you live in the bubble and you continue to manage your, let me use foreign exchange, for example, you begin to manage your foreign exchange. You see, you can't go nowhere with that. I mean, you can't go far. One, because spectators, I mean, investors are just there looking at you, trying to take a decision, and then before they can take a decision, there are basic, parameters they must look at. And if they see that there are manipulations happening around your, your economic ecosystem, if they find it difficult to function. So, and again, if you look at it generally speaking, you will see that the basic thing that we ought to have done when it comes to being productive or being industrialized as a nation, we've not paid attention to it. Simple lifelines given to us by nature, we've not been able to take advantage of. So there's so much that ought to have happened that just started happening now. Because, I mean, if you ask me, we're still discussing refinery at this age and time when nations have actually begun to discuss, phasing out oil, but we are still discussing refineries at this age. We're still discussing railways. These are things you can't even, make happen. When I talked about, the lifelines, I'm talking about natural resources given to us by nature. There's no way you can actually, get your solid mineral sector to work without having a functional railway system, because these are heavy metals. You can't move them from one point to another or move them to your export gates without having them move on they can't move on the road. They have to move through the rails. So is it industrialization? Are we talking about the industries? Basic things as pharmaceuticals, basic drugs that we take every day, the APIs are not gotten from here. So we just assemble drugs in Nigeria. So if the realities we have decided to face our reality and then, push and make sure that we get it right. So I know it's going to hurt, it's going to bite, but for me, it's better I get the bite now and then get a better result tomorrow than just sit back and then continue to live in the bubble and then continue to lie to myself. So for me, it's just trying to give a synopsis of what I have seen basically in the economy. I can give that to you and say, yes, we are still at the foundation. We are building, and if we are, are we building rightly? Yes, right about now we are building rightly, and all of that. Everybody's still getting that bite. But the truth is, some of these things took many years for us to get to where we are. Of course, we're not saying that it's going to take many years before we can recover, but the recovery has started. We have reached our base. 2024 is the base when it comes to downward trend. We have started going back up. And then as soon as we start going back up, I can assure you that things will get better from this point.
let's look at, like you said, we've seen that move in the foreign exchange market. There's been a drop. That's talking about the Naira exchange rate to the dollar. Many will say, oh, I think the CBN is walking the talk. Also looking at the diaspora remittances and all of that. But some say it's just because of the Euro bond that's been flaunted by the DMO. Do you think that all of this point us to the fact that we are on the right direction?
No, economic wars are not won by noise. They're actually won by strategies. So I think what the central bank has done is to make sure that everything converges. So there's a converging point where, yes, the Euro bond, the inflow from the Euro bond, then again with the new, by launching the electronic foreign exchange matching system, and then again the diaspora remittances, all, and then again I need to also add, then there's going to be a lot of inflow from those who are our returnees, our brothers and sisters who are going to come back from other countries. So that accumulation, that confluence is actually is going to play out. It's going to play. It's going to show in the exchange rate when it comes to the FX market. So exactly that's what's playing out. So it's not a bad thing if the Euro bond is playing out. Then the new CBN policy is also working at the same time. So it's a strategy. So if that is a strategy, I think kudos to the Central Bank of Nigeria, because that means they are thinking, they're actually looking at the country from a strategic point of view.
Let's stay with food inflation, which is one of the major issues. Like you said, Nigerians, they want either the Naira and Kobo or foods on their table. That is what will interest them at this particular time. What's your take? We've got a lot of views with regards to how governments can address it, at least to a level. What do you think about that? And even the removal of import duties on some food items, some will say it has not really paid off. What can be done to, maybe in a sequential order, or it could be long-term, medium-term, short-term, to address food inflation and the challenges around it?
Okay, so those removals of tariffs and all of that, basically short-term plans to actually help, ameliorate the sufferings of the people. And then again, so going forward, I think there should be a robust plan when it comes to agriculture. And then you see, agriculture is not a standalone. There is a lot of things that occur within the agro space. You need to look at the inputs. You need to look at the ground preparations. You need to look at the mechanization. You need to look at water, as in when it comes to which is part of the mechanization. So you need to also look at transportation, because supply. If you do all of this with the supply shock, or you don't have bad infrastructure, it's going to be very difficult for you to move goods from the farm gates to the consumers. So it becomes there has to be a strategic plan where in a short term we must be able to, in the medium term rather, we should be able to become self-sufficient when it comes to staple food. We need to look at cultivating more rice, getting our farmers back. So again, if you're looking at getting our farmers back, you need to also look at security. So it's an entire system that has to work. So everybody has to start doing their own part to make sure the economy starts to work. That brings me to the next issue. So our subnationals must marry whatever policy that the federal government is turning out. Because if the subnational, because most of the land that we have most of the investment are all domiciled within the state. And now, good thing with the autonomy of the local government, so we need to actually embrace them. We need to pull them into whatever strategy that is being carried out or being pushed at this point in time. Then again, the third issue we need to also look at here is making funds available. Now, the central bank, with the tightening of the policy, the MPC, would actually make a lot of borrowing not to happen when it comes to the commercial bank, coming from the commercial banks. But what they need to do is to take advantage of the development financial institutions, where they have to recapitalize most of our those financial institutions, because those financial institutions are designed basically to support industrialization. So those are the factors that must be put into consideration. And then again, we need to take advantage of AI, take advantage of what's happening globally, because you can't mechanize without the introduction of some kind of artificial intelligence, because that's where we are now, because mappings are done now. Your tractors have to move with a lot of AI inventions, because going forward, because I can say this, you see, you can't, so for example, as we speak in Nigeria, you can't find a cassava farm in Nigeria where you can get an average yield of, let's say 20 tons per hectare. That is basically impossible. But you're competing with countries like Brazil, where there's the minimum yield per cassava farm when it comes to per hectare is 28 tons per hectare. So we need to actually begin to distill what are the strategies, what are the policies, what are the things that are working for them that can also work for us here. We have basically almost the same climate. So what do we do to add value to some of this agro products, that we are spending a lot of money on trying to import into this country? I always use this as a very simple example that everybody understands. Candy, as it stands today in Nigeria, every single candy you open and throw into your mouth, you have just all that was just assembled here in Nigeria, not made in Nigeria. It comes from glucose syrup, it comes from coloration, flavoring, and water. All these things I mentioned, only water comes from Nigeria. Coloration you bring from Turkey, glucose syrup you bring from Brazil or China, and then coloration, of course, you bring from China too. So these are basic things that can come from cassava. So I stay on cassava because, this is part of the natural resource, or what I say, lifeline given to us by nature that we're not taking advantage of. So there are no politics around it, but these are things that we must take advantage of, because apart from industrialization, apart from helping you produce things that you need, for the market, you also need it for staple food like the gari that we eat, fufu and all of that. They also come from there. So a country like Thailand, that is the second largest producer of cassava in the world, makes about $2 billion from cassava. Nigeria, the largest producer of cassava in the world, makes less than $200 million. What does that tell you? We don't know how to take advantage. So we need to have that sit down. We need to begin to, yes, the policies have started building foundations. Now the sprouting era, which is going forward from 2025, experts, those who understand how things work, how things run, will begin to come together, both from the subnationals, both from the local government, and both from the federal. That confluence will push a lot of transactions that will help us, grow our economy and become self-sufficient. We have all that it takes to be one of the greatest nations in the world.
All right, there. Before I let you go, you've talked about beautiful interventions now in the agricultural space. Now, the fallout of these reforms is something that Nigerians have talked about, and many say, what sort of specific interventions for the people? And that's why you start talking about social safety nets, social investment programs by government, which we've not seen in a while, but I think the ministry is back now and a lot is expected. So in 2025, Mr. Okuku, what would you advise government? What are you thinking? What are those things that can be done? We've seen the move with CNG. We've seen the move with trying to reduce transport costs. We've seen the move with trying to, move away from PMS and all of that. But what more can be done that would touch the people?
What more should be done? It's never enough when it comes to providing, those basic palliative that will support, whether it is the consumers or support those who are manufacturing. Like I mentioned, the finances, we must bring in some products, some financial product that will support industrialization. We need to have some support also for those who are in the agro space, like I mentioned earlier. Then again, we need to increase our supply when it comes to energy. I don't know what strategy, but there's a strategy that we can use to make sure that we would take advantage of mini grids and make sure, because without energy supply, it will be difficult for you to industrialize. Then gas utilization strategy. Our model when it comes to gas utilization is still not as robust as it ought to be, because one, you can't industrialize without, having gas infrastructure, because most industries can't depend on diesel. I have some of my, from some companies I consult for. When you talk about, manufacturing, the energy cost is so much on them that most of them are complaining. Go to Aba, you find some of those companies complaining. But if we had a gas infrastructure that, that supplies gas directly to some of these industries, you see, it cuts their energy costs by 50%. Then again, we need to look at strategic infrastructure development. No, it's not just about infrastructure because we want to build roads. No, we have to pay attention to those roads that lead to industrialization or lead to manufacturing or lead to raw material supply. So I talked about railways, so we have to intensify, even if we need to borrow more, but we need to be targeted in our borrowing. And then again, when we're borrowing, we should borrow towards things that should be able to repay itself. So some of these things become a standalone, and after a few months of moratorium, the infrastructure or the structure, whatever we're borrowing for, will begin to pay back itself. And then focus more on concessionary loans. And like I mentioned again, those our development finance institutions, Bank of Agriculture, Nexim Bank, BOI, they need to give them a whole lot of support so that they can actually support the industries. I think, and then again, I think going forward, there should be a lot more of a fiscal discipline. Fiscal discipline in the sense that while people are crying, there's some kind of investment, there's some kind of procurements that shouldn't be happening at this point in time. So we should focus on those things that will help our people come out of poverty. And then you mentioned about the humanitarian ministry. A lot is still being cooked as far as the ministry is concerned, the interventions that are going to come out from there. I know those ones will come out, and then we need to also be a bit more, we need to take advantage of data collected, and then, the verifications that have been done by the previous minister. I know she did a whole lot when it comes to, getting those data verified. So we need to take advantage of those so that we don't go back, trying to reinvent the wheel. Some of those things are already in existence. So let's take advantage of those data and then provide a support for those who are, those who can afford it. And then again, try as much as we can to make them self-sufficient, because we can't continue to give them handouts. So we have our plan and say, okay, in the next 10 years, in the next 10 months, these are the things we'll be providing for them. But after that, we should begin to put them together in clusters and begin to industrialize from there. So big countries like India, Chile took advantage of this kind of things when people are in IDP camps or when people are found themselves together, so that collectivity, brings them together under one common cause, which is suffering. So you can actually take advantage of that, begin to train them on some certain skill that will be used when it comes to industrialization, because we're talking about secondary and primary industrialization. So the support that you need for the primary, industrial hubs will come from the secondary ones. So those are already lifelines that we are looking down on. Then again, I'm also very glad with the livestock policy of the government, because that's another lifeline we've been playing with for many years. So if we're able to become one of the exporters of beef, out of Africa, just like Botswana is doing, taking advantage of RFID and all of that. So there's a full ministry in Botswana that all they do is livestock, and that is amazing. What manufacturing contributes to the GDP of Nigeria is exactly what beef contributes to the GDP of Botswana. So whatever thing that they are doing, the inputs, so we need to be very strategic and deliberate, in trying to grow this economy. And I know, like I said, I always say, I know it's possible, and the right foundation is being laid at this point in time, and I think we need to take advantage. So those who have good ideas should just come in, and then let's, and help the government, and then let's push forward.
All right, there. I must thank you so much for your time on the show. Mr. Ogbonna Okuku joined me from our Abuja studios. He's an investment and economic development expert. Thank you for your submissions on this very important topic of discourse. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you so much, Tulu.
All right, then. Well, it's time to go on a break. And when we come back, we'll understand developments in Nigeria's